Lisa stood side by side with me at Remembrance Day, and I couldn't help but reflect that that is Lisa MacLeod, standing side by side with each and every one of us every single day, never missing a day. So now it is with just absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Lisa MacLeod, this year's honoree, the reason we all are here this evening, to the stage. Thank you very, very much.
Well, where I come from, I say stop, stop, and then I go more, more. It is so great to be here. I want to say thank you, Rabbi Shear. I have my own rabbi, as you know, and you'll hear from him later, Rabbi Bloom. Yes, of course, Rabbi Shear, you've become a great friend of mine, and Rabbi Mendelson is here as well. And they're all very close friends of mine, and that has happened, of course, over a period of many, many years. I first wanted to become Jewish after I met the late Rabbi Bulka. And I think everybody here that is not Jewish also thinks the same. And so I appreciate that. I want to thank all of you for being here today. And I especially want to say thank you to Roger for his kind words and his friendship over the last 25 years. You know, we're an unlikely pair, but we do care about sports, we care about our community, we care about developing Ottawa, but at the very base of all of it, we are friends who enjoy one another's company and who have deep admiration and respect for one another. I also want to say thank you to my co-chairs, and I want to start with you, Michael Paulowin. You are a wonderful human being, one of the first people I met when I arrived in Ottawa in 1998, and you have done nothing but demonstrate your loyalty to our city, but you have always been there for the JCC and the Jewish community as a whole. And I have to say, for all of you, when you run in an election, you have to face off with him, because he wants to know exactly how you stand on the Jewish community. And yes, that is incredible. Larry Zeifman is a wonderful friend of mine. In some of the darkest days I've had in politics, Larry Zeifman has been there to send me a text message, make a phone call, send me a WhatsApp, and make sure that I'm there and that I feel valued. And Larry, it means a great deal to me that you're here tonight, and you flew in from Toronto to be part of this, so thank you very much. And he's not here, he's in Arizona, but probably Canada's greatest Chief of Defense Staff, a man who led our country in combating terrorism in Afghanistan, and a proud Newfoundlander. That General Hillier. He has been a dear friend of mine and Joe's. General Hillier has been a dear friend of mine and Joe's since the Afghanistan War, when they worked together. Joe, of course, went to Afghanistan twice in a non-combat role with D&D. Now, Rick, like Larry, is a hockey fan. And even though he's a Newfoundlander, he got this one wrong. And it was a better night for Larry last night than it was for Rick, as our Senators won 3-0. Now, that's a good thing. I know Chris Phillips is here. Let's give him a big round of applause. Well, let me tell you something. You guys will enjoy this story, and I know this Ottawa crowd will love it. When Rick was the Chief of Defense Staff and he was in Kabul, he had the Stanley Cup brought over. And when he was showing the troops that there would be a Toronto Maple Leaf inscription on the cup, a young feisty Newfoundlander at the back yelled out, "Hey, Chief, the Taliban's closer to the cup than the Maple Leafs." No, I'm telling you, that is a true story. But in all seriousness, I do have a few colleagues I also wanted to thank that are here tonight, that I wouldn't be the person I am without them, either challenging me, supporting me, or forgiving me. And so at first, the first person I want to say thank you for forgiving me is the 10 years I spent in the Ontario Legislature with Premier Dalton McGuinty. Premier, thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your service. And I don't say this outside of this room, but he has the best speech-giving voice in the history of speech-giving voices. It's just really nice and soothing. So it was really great for him to be here. Two other people that are very special to me, obviously Jan Harder. Everyone knows not only did I work for Jan Harder, but everyone thinks I'm Jan Harder's daughter. And we obviously salute Jan for her 25 years at City Hall, but also her steadfast support of the Jewish community and always making sure we knew where she stood. My colleague and my seatmate for a long time, the longest serving MPP in the Eastern Ontario region, John Yakubuski is here. Thank you, John. Another friend and mentor of mine who's always been a leader here in the city, but also at one point during the Afghanistan war was also the most powerful woman in Canada, Senator Marjorie Le Breton. And I haven't seen him, but if he is here, John Fraser, who has become a friend and colleague and the MPP for Ottawa South. So thank you very, very much. A lot of people ask me, well, what am I wearing tonight? Yeah, this is the official tartan of the Jewish people on the Scottish Registry. Yep, had it flown in from Scotland, and the dress made in Nepean, and I want to remind you in wearing this dress that we are together, and that just like the Celtic warriors that I come from, each of you warrior every day, and that's why I wanted to wear this dress. I wanted to prove to you, which I don't probably need to, but I really want you to know how special you are. Yes. Now, I'm humbled to receive this award, but I believe it should be shared among many of the voices that have been silent heroes throughout our history who've given selflessly for our freedom. Among them is my grandfather, Alex R. Stort. He was a modest coal miner who every Friday would greet me with a chocolate bar I don't think he could afford when I rushed to meet him at the bus. Although he gave me a precious gift of confidence, I didn't know until many years later that he was a war hero, and that what he accomplished was fighting the Nazis in Europe. He was there, D-Day +1, and he wanted to go back for more to take out the Nazis. He was a Canadian hero. He would later tell my husband, a former military man himself, that he wasn't afraid when he went to war. In fact, he wasn't afraid when he was in the coal mine. The only thing that he was afraid of was Joe's driving. His commitment to both his quiet humor and heroism was also to Canadian values. Canadian values that were reminiscent by Lillian Freeman, a Jew, who after the war transformed her home into a sanctuary for injured veterans. And she created the first poppy in Canada, symbolizing remembrance and resilience. Today, her home, a home that was built by Jews and lived in by Jews, stands as a homage to the Canadian Forces on Somerset Avenue as the Army Officers' Mess. Exactly, that's something you should be very proud of. Both my grandfather and Lillian embodied the spirit of compassion and commitment to others, reminding us of our responsibility to stand up for those in need and protect the values that have made us whole. They were brought up in a time when their Prime Minister, Sir Robert Borden, our Prime Minister during World War I, declared, "The war has brought us a great deal of suffering, but the war has also brought us a great deal of freedom. That freedom is the legacy we must cherish and protect." However, my experience this week at the school which bears his name is that our values seem to be as fragile today as they have ever been. I'm going to divert from my script for 1 second because I am a mother of an alumni of Sir Robert Borden. I have 2 friends right here who have children, 4 friends, who have children going to Sir Robert Borden School right now. And what happened on Remembrance Day spit in the face of every single Canadian. It spit in the face of the men and women here, by the way, who serve in our military. And my friend Ernie Hughes, who fought for this country, Major Ernie Hughes retired, who stood for and created the Barrhaven Legion. They did not stand for Ernie, who's here with us today, who's standing with you today as one of those white men who had something to do with the military. Now, it takes courage. It takes courage to stand up and take a principled stand at that and not to back down. And so we are reminded by the great leader, Sir Winston Churchill, who once said, "Courage is rightly esteemed the first of human qualities because it guarantees all others." It's this courage that inspires us to honor their legacies. And we must, and defiantly so, even under pressure and even under threat. During a visit to Yad Vashem in Israel, I saw the tiny slippers under the glass, memorializing those who died in the Holocaust. You never recover from seeing that sight. It made me understand the need for Canada to always stand up for our Jewish population. But it was also very clear to me, as Canadians, we must always stand up for the right of Israel to exist. Visiting Yad Vashem was a defining moment when I knew Canada and Israel shared an unsinkable and unbreakable bond. Our nations came of age together after World War II. Canada asserting our independence in the Dominion, Israel becoming its own state. Our shared values of democracy, freedom, and respect for human rights binds our countries, which is why I have a deep and abiding commitment to my Jewish constituents. I have seen firsthand what happens to Jews if leaders forego moral clarity. In Sderot, I'll never say that right, a town just miles from Gaza, the reality is very stark. Families live under the constant threat of rocket fire, with only seconds to reach bomb shelters. And I stood in the bomb shelter. The bomb shelter was a children's playground where these children were supposed to be playing and laughing, but were instead filled with fear and anxiety. But what I'll never forget is, just like those slippers at Yad Vashem, was the smell. I will never get that smell out of my nose because it smelled like children's urine after they had dealt with a bomb. Can you imagine if that happened in Barrhaven, Manotick, Canada, Orleans, Gloucester, Vanier? They deal with this every day. They didn't just deal with it on October the 7th. That's why I chose Sderot to create a parenthood center so that those children and their parents would be able to deal with their trauma and have a fighting shot to get out of a mindset that they're always under attack. On October 7th, many places like Sderot became victims of Hamas's atrocities. And that's why I feel compelled to stand up and say enough is enough. We, collectively we, people in this room, as Canadian citizens, must demand our government bring those hostages home. Israel's right to defend itself is non-negotiable. And make no mistake, if we do not stand up, the people in this room, the people with a platform, the people with a voice, Canada will also be at threat. We must, and I say must, as the allies in this audience, we must not miss the opportunity to combat anti-Semitism. We must stand up to hate and protect and comfort our Jewish friends when they need it. That's the Canadian way. I'm reminded of a passage from Proverbs 31, 8 and 9. Speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves and ensure justice for those being crushed. It is our shared responsibility, inspired by the legacies of my grandfather and Lillian Freeman, to use our voices to support the Jewish community in Ottawa and across Canada. We must never lose sight of that. Today, we face protests that do not merely challenge policy or seek justice. The protests that we see today are challenging our very existence as a country, as a democracy. The fundamental beliefs and values that we hold strong are under threat. And make no mistake, it's not just on the little village called Twitter. It's happening on our streets. Today, so-called pro-Hamas protesters have moved beyond free speech and the rule of law. Today, they wear masks. They utter genocidal chants. They dress with fake bomb vests, if they are fake at all. And they menace Jewish communities, our neighborhoods, Parliament Hill, and Queen's Park. These are not peaceful protests. They are protests of hate and division. Such actions are an affront to our Canadian values and the beliefs that we hold dear each and every single day. They are also a direct attack on Jewish Canadians and the State of Israel. Golda Meir once said, "There can be no peace without a strong and secure Israel." Her words remind us of the heavy burden of conflict and also what could happen if we do not remain resolute and defend values of peace, order, and good governance. Whether Meir, Churchill, or Borden, we saw the true test of leadership. It's devastating today that no such leadership exists anymore. Instead, we see appeasement, denialism, and policy by finger counting the number of Jews who vote in a riding. I know, to all of you who are Jewish, it's hard not to lose faith. It's the system and the people in the system who are letting you down. But I ask you to hold the faith. The silent majority isn't silent anymore. There are leaders here and across our community. They might not be elected, but they are in this room. To my fellow allies, this is no longer about whether we are comfortable to speak out or not. It is whether Jews in this room and across our city feel safe or not. I ask everyone to look around this room, Jew or ally. And when you look around this room, all you really see are friends, neighbors, and coworkers. Together, we are stronger than the angry mob outside. Together, we're the ones that hold Canadian values. And together, we have the duty to uphold the promise of Alex R. Stewart and Lillian Freedom. They made a promise to us that we live under the maple leaf, that we are strong and free. And that maple leaf stands for democracy. And that democratic heart also beats in Israel, where in the Middle East, democracy is in short supply. If there has ever been a time that I have asked anybody, I ask all of you who are not Jewish to stand up and support your friend, your neighbor, your coworker. You don't know what kind of a difference that's going to make, but I can tell you it's going to make a pretty big one. And then that will spread. And then we will continue to support our nation. We will support Canadian values. And in doing so, we will support a friend and ally in Israel. I want to thank you all for this award. But more importantly, I want to thank you for reminding me, since October 7th, who I am, what my purpose is, and what our country stands for. Thank you very much.